Hello, welcome to the Indie Ocean, the channel where games have things said about them. This is Amazingly Awful Games Volume 2. I know what you're thinking about it being amazingly awful. But it's... okay, it is pretty bad, admittedly. But it's not quite what you might be expecting it to be. The developer has said that the aim was to ape infamously bad collections like Action 52, but it kind of doesn't succeed. See, the games here aren't amazingly awful so much as not really finished. There are... how many are there? 10. It's in the title. So I'll run you through these games very quickly, but they mostly feel like they're just not finished. Like they were done really, really quickly, and any one of them could be better than it is if it had had more time put into it. One in particular feels to me like it could actually be a reasonably fun diversion. You know, a nice little 80 Microsoft point game for a couple of hours of fun. But it feels like all the other games in this collection, like it was made in about an hour. So that's a problem. And being intentionally bad doesn't introduce fun into the game. Bad is still bad, even if you intend it. But it's not sort of hilariously awful bad, like the developer seems to hope. Anyway. Blobby Bobby. Jump and move. Well, that's an inspiring control scheme. Here we go. God, listen to that sound. Anyway, you'll have to take my word for it that the control here feels clunky as shit. I mean, clunky as actual shit. Like, if you were trying to get some actual human excretion to fly from platform to platform, this is more or less what it will feel like. And the sort of watery, scrolling grey on grey background, the Microsoft Paint sprites is not inspiring. I know it's not meant to be, but oh god. I'm just trying to jump on one platform, it shouldn't be this difficult. Oh! Fuck! And apparently, looking at the top of the screen there, we're collecting beans. I thought they were coins, but they're beans. The only bean that's that kind of colour is a baked bean. So we're a red blob collecting baked beans. Try again? No, I really don't think so. Fruit Defender. The vicious fruit is coming to get you, and you have to hit the appropriate button to destroy it. Use stasis to slow the fruit. Alright, let's give it a go. I have played all of these before because I did a written review for the Indie Mine. So pop the green fruit when it's in the square on the appropriate side. So it's kind of like a rhythm game, except that the rhythm has nothing to do with the music. Pop. Pop. Yeah, I remember this now. It does what it does completely competently. Popping the fruit as it enters your little square on the appropriate side. You know, it's fine. It does that well enough. And it has this stasis effect that lets you slow things down if you're having a tough time of it. But I just don't see why anyone would play it. I mean, it sets out to do something and does it competently enough, but it's just not fun. I don't see why anyone would choose to play this. So, that's Fruit Defender. Let's get out of it. Grid Warrior. From what I remember, it's kind of a Space Invaders type of thing. Yeah, you shoot at this stuff that's slowly scrolling down towards you. Like this. And you have a shield that you can use. But it recharges again, and I don't mind the green on black aesthetic here. Maybe it's because I had a Game Boy and used it for a long time. Maybe it's because or maybe it's the same ability that allows me to play the Virtual Boy without being offended by its colour scheme. But the green on black thing doesn't really bother me. It's fine. Minimalist, not really a problem. But it's... Oh, we can move up and down as well, I didn't realise. Oh, that adds a whole new level of depth to the gameplay. But again, it's the fact that this game is just not very interesting. You just hold down the right trigger and weave around to avoid the stuff that's being shot at you. It does what it does well enough. There aren't any major bugs or design errors or anything like that. It's just not entertaining. Yeah, so that's Grid. Or the Grid Warrior or something. But let's leave that alone, shall we? I made a clone with zombies in it. Obviously the title is a pastiche of the infamous I Made a Game with Zombies in It on Xbox Live Indie Games, which is one of the better known games on that channel. I don't know why, because it's actually not that good. Like, I'm not saying the developer of that is a bad developer, because I like their other game, or some of their other games, like ZP2KX, Zombies and Pterodactyls, is one of theirs as well. But I just don't think that I Made a Game with Zombies in It is that good. It's not bad. It's okay. It's a twin-stick shooter with kind of a distinctive theme song. But that gimmick, that theme song and everything is pretty much all it has going for it. As a game, it's mediocre. Anyway, let's stop ruminating about that and get on with this. Move, aim, fire. This is a twin-stick shooter, but it's a scrolling one. You wander around shooting, rather than being an arena-based thing like Namesake. And you may notice immediately that the background looks like someone has been sick after drinking too much WKD. The backgrounds don't really get any better than this. They all give me a headache. And I mean that quite literally. It's giving me a little throbbing sensation just behind my right down eyebrow that wasn't there a moment ago. And again, as I've said about many questionable games on Xbox Live Indie Games, I don't know why anyone would design this background. Who would think that's a good thing to put in the background? Why would you create that and then put it in the background of your game? Yeah, that looks as good as it can possibly look. I mean, I know this collection is intentionally bad, but surely you don't want people to have a bad time. You want people to have some sort of fun. Anyway, this is about as exciting as it looks. I mean, it functions well enough, except for the fact that every single bullet causes a small vibration in the controller, which is really, really irritating. But the game functions well enough as a wandering twin-stick shooter. But again, there's no point. It's just I don't see what enjoyment is to be had from it. Of course, there are other levels, and I played this for something like 4 or 5 levels, I think. Okay, we're picking up circles now. Power-ups presumably. Yes, I've got a machine gun. Which should sound familiar to anyone who played Die Hard Trilogy on the PS1, with their fairly shoddy mimicry of Bruce Willis going, I've got a machine gun. Yeah, as I say, there are other levels with other equally eye-bleeding backgrounds, but it's really not worth sticking around to see those, so enough of that. Lame Invaders 2. The Lame Invaders are back, and this time they're lamer than ever. I can't remember exactly what this is. I think it's a, horizontally scrolling thing. And I seem to recall that this one was quite annoying. because it functions okay, but look at it. It's sort of really, really blocky brown ground. The background's quite nice. I quite like that whole spacey thing, but that's not exactly a reason to play a game, is it? A moderately pretty background. And does this look interesting to you? Shooting stuff that's on the ground and occasionally rises up from the ground? It's just... it's not terrible, but again, I really feel like there's no reason to play it. And there are far, far, far superior horizontal shooters on Xbox Live indie games, not to mention in other places. And yes, this whole game, 10 games in one, costs 80 Microsoft points. But, you know, charging the equivalent of 8p per game isn't an excuse. So let's give up on lame Invaders. Nastyroids. I seem to remember that this one is one of the least awful in this collection. If you've ever played Asteroids, then you pretty much know what you're getting into here, except that it now also has power-ups. You have this dodgy rotational controls where you have to turn to face your target before you shoot, and you have to propel yourself with this thruster. But you basically take out asteroids. After a while you get enemies and stuff, sort of, stuff that can damage you and home in on you, and an assortment of power-ups. It's not bad. Like, if you like asteroids, this is a good version of it. It does everything well enough, and with the power-ups and stuff, it adds a few things to the basic asteroids formula. If you enjoy asteroids, this is a good version to get. It's just that I personally don't really enjoy asteroids. I find it quite boring. So, goodbye, Nastyroids. Seeker. Now, I think Seeker is the one that I think actually has some sort of potential. It seems to be randomly generated, and your objective is to, I think, get a key or something, and then get to a computer. And you have to navigate this maze of rooms to do it. Oh god, I'm trapped. And one of the interesting, I suppose, things that happens in this game is, you can see on the right I have power counting down. That's basically your health, so your power deteriorates when you take damage, but also just gradually over time. So you need to not just find your way through the maze, you need to find your way through the maze without taking much damage and without taking too long to do it. So, you know, I don't think this game is great, but I think it could be decent for an 80 Microsoft point game if more time and effort had been put into it. I'd like to see this done properly. As it is, it's battery, that's what I was looking for. As it is, it has some serious faults. Like this. It's really easy to get stuck on the corner when you're trying to get out of a room. It happens all the time. Ugh. I was doing those deliberately, but I was doing it to make the point. And one of the serious problems is you can only shoot left and right. You can't shoot up or down. And when enemies approach you from all directions, that's very inconvenient. The developers said that this was an intentional design choice, but intentional or not, I find it really, really irritating. What happened? I thought that was that not my objective? Huh. Yeah, so Seeker has some potential to be a fun hour or two game for 80 Microsoft points, but the way it's executed here leaves a lot to be desired. So, dang. Seeker, yeah. Probably the best game in the bunch, in my opinion, but I wouldn't recommend playing it even if you were just paying 8 points for this game alone. I certainly wouldn't recommend paying 80 points for the whole collection to play Seeker. Oh, piss off. It's a lot easier to just run away than to actually fight. I'm sure this is where I was meant to go to. Am I meant to destroy it? Is that it? Yes. Okay. Level complete. Well, that's it. That's pretty much how Seeker continued. So, you've basically seen everything there is to see there. Stormwheel. This reminds me of Action Fighter on the Sega Master System. One of my first, what I consider real game experiences. I mean, I played the Atari 2600, the Atari XE, and some other stuff like that. Oh shit. What's it called? The Spectrum. I played stuff like that before. But I consider that playing games, video games, as I would recognise them today, started with playing them on my brother's Master System. And one of the first games he got for that was Action Fighter, and it was a lot like this. It's okay, but Action Fighter wasn't very good anyway. It wasn't very good at the time. So, to have an inferior version of it now is a sincere mistake. This is entertaining enough for about 30 seconds, but I've had enough of it. I don't have any urge to continue playing it, particularly when those jumps can come out of nowhere like that. That's pretty irritating. They're generally, if you're driving fast enough to get to the goal without running out of time, like I had 0 seconds to spare there. So if you're driving at full speed so you actually get to the end of the level in time, then you're also driving too fast to be able to react to the jumps when they come up. So yeah. That's, what was it called? Stormwheel. Terror Tunnel. This is kind of, how can I describe it? Kind of a faster version of Missile Command. Like, instead of painstakingly launching 1 or 2 missiles at a time, you're just spamming loads of shots and stuff that comes down. Yeah. So you're basically just holding the right trigger and moving your crosshairs towards stuff that appears. So essentially what you're doing is just wiggling the stick back and forth. While that might sound fun in a certain context, it's not really. It's more like work. Anyway. No. Viper Wing. This is the last one. And I think it's a vertically scrolling shooter. Oh god, look at that background. That actually looks exactly like some vomit that I brought up with. After drinking far too much of something pink. This is kind of slow and also annoying. I've covered quite a few vertically scrolling shooters. Like, I know you're in effect paying 8 Microsoft points for this because it's one of a collection of 10 games, but still, spend 80 Microsoft points and buy Redshift or Prismatic Solid or Vampire Rage or something. There's no reason to buy this. And again, it's competent enough, but it's not actually fun. And it's not hilariously bad, as seems to be the intention. There's no point to any of it. And that pretty much sums up the whole of 10 Amazingly Awful Games Volume 2. I get what the developer was going for, but there's just no point. So don't bother. If you want to have the Amazingly Awful Games experience, watch this video. You know, you're getting pretty much the whole thing there. Anyway, thanks for watching me trudge through 10 Amazingly Awful Games Volume 2, and rejoin me the next time for more game stuff. See you then.